We're going to be looking at Gimp today. Now, Gimp is a graphical image manipulation program. Basically, it's like Photoshop, but it's free. It's a very comprehensive piece of software, and we're going to look at just using one of the features in this first lesson. So you can download Gimp from gimp.org, that's GIMP.org. It's available for Linux, it's available for Mac, and it's available for PCs. So just about everyone can get a free copy of this piece of software. So we're going to click on the icon now, and we're just going to open up the program. Now there are some main areas that we're going to be looking at in order to manipulate our image. So firstly, we have here the tools that we would use, and these are very much like the ones we would see in Photoshop. Here we have the effects that we can do with those tools. Down here, for example, if we click on a tool, this will allow us to edit the options of that tool. And the layers are here. Now, a layer is like an overhead projector piece of acetate, if you remember those. So you could put a picture on the overhead projector and it would display on the screen. You'd then put a blank piece of acetate, so a clear bit of plastic on the top, and you could draw on that acetate, and that wouldn't destroy the image on the original picture below, and you could add more and more of these things and build it up. Okay, so that's what layers are like in these graphical image manipulation programs. It probably sounds more complicated than it actually is, and hopefully by the end of this lesson you'll be able to use layers and understand exactly what to do with them. So let's start off by going to File and Open. Now the image I want is on the desktop, and I'm going to choose this image here, and that's going to be displayed on the main stage here, and it's a nice picture of some coloured rocks by a river. First thing I'm going to do is add a couple of layers. Now we don't want this layer to be damaged, just like with the piece of acetate. We want this to maintain our base, our non-destructible layer. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to edit the two layers that we're going to put on top of that. So we're going to layer, and we're going to add a duplicate layer, and we're going to add another duplicate layer. And most of what we're going to be doing is on this second layer that we added here. So I want to turn this into a grey picture with all the colours washed out. So I'm going to go to Colours, and I'm going to go to Desaturate. Now you can colour to grey, but that does take a long time, especially if you're doing it on a low-powered computer, an older computer. So I would recommend just clicking on Desaturate for now. And as we can see, just accept the defaults, and the picture is going grey so we can see what it's looked like. All the colours have gone. That's that completed now. Now what we need to do is add on a canvas. So imagine an artist has decided to do a painting, and he would start with a blank piece of canvas. Well, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go to Layer, we're going to go to Mask, and we're going to add a layer mask. And this is white full opacity. That is just like the canvas that an artist would have. We click on Add. Now what this means is when we get the paintbrush, because we're going to be using the paintbrush tool, any of the painting that we do, we don't have to select the colour. It's going to come from the layer below. This layer here is going to bring us the colours. So by painting on this canvas, we're getting these colours. So these are the rocks that I want to colour in, but I want to be able to get closer in and see them better. So if we click on this arrow here where it says 18.2%, that's the original size of the image displayed on our screen. And let's choose it 50%, and we can see a lot more detail. We can get closer in, and we can manipulate where we want to colour by using these slider bars at the side. Okay, now we've got quite a biggish area to cover here, so I'm going to start by changing the size of the brush to 250. And that way, if we paint now, as we're bringing out the colours, we're doing a much wider area. Now, if we accidentally make a mistake, oops, didn't mean to colour that, wherever we are, we can undo the paintbrush. And let's say we make a complete hash of the whole layer that we're working on, we can just delete that layer and start again. And this is especially good if you've got quite a few layers open and you made a mistake and you want to start again. All the previous work done on the previous layers don't have to be destroyed. They're still there, and you can carry on with a brand new layer and correct whatever mistakes you've just made. So we're colouring in the rocks here. Now it might be that we need to do some finer detail, get closer in. So what we can do is we can lower the brush size. Let's change it back to 75. Right, so we can see now that the brush is smaller, and we can perhaps even zoom in if we like. 100% is the next one, or we could, if we don't want that, we can actually type in 75% and it will do 75% for us, whichever way we want to do it. And then we can get close down and just colour in the bits of the rock we want. Okay, let's make this look quite neat. Here we go. And again, if you have made a mistake, you can always click on edit and undo the paintbrush, and it just undoes the last bit of painting you did. So if you're manipulating an image, I think it's best to just do a couple of brush strokes and then unclick the mouse. Do another couple of brush strokes and unclick the mouse, and that way it's easier to return to correct any mistakes that we've made. Okay, so there we are. We've got all the rocks nicely coloured in. Is it? Don't know. So that rock doesn't need to be coloured in. So we can edit, undo paintbrush. There we are. And that's pretty much the image. So if we zoom back to the original size, which was 18.2%, there we are. We just have the rocks standing out, and I think that looks quite nice. But I'd like it to be darker. The colours would come out really so much brighter if we made it darker. So if we click on the actual layer picture, not the canvas, but on the actual picture, and then we can go to the colours and we can change the brightness and contrast. Now I personally don't think on this image that altering the contrast does it any good. It doesn't look particularly effective, so if I lower it you can see that. I'm not a fan of that on this particular image. But what I would like to do is make it darker. So we can actually choose a value. So I'm going to choose -20, and that will paint that for us. We can see it's quite a bit darker and really makes the colours stand out to be more effective. I'm going to go one better, and I'm going to go to -30. And there we are. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to click OK. If you weren't, you could hit cancel and it would return to how you were. Now let's say that you need to finish editing for the day, but you haven't finished editing the picture. If we go to File and Save As, it's going to come up with this file extension XCF. Now that's the file system that Gimp uses. So that isn't like a JPEG, like a normal photo. But what you would bring back up is all the editing you've done and all the editing tools and all the layers. Okay, so we're not going to do that because I'm happy with my picture. So I want to export it. What we would do is we would click File and Export As. But because this is quite a large image and we've got all these layers, it's easier, especially on a lower powered computer, and a lot quicker if we go to the layers and we merge them down. So basically we're merging these two layers together, And the layer that we were working with is the one that is the important one, and that's the one that's going to be the layer we keep. And again, so we're going to go to layer and merge down, and that's our finished image now. You can see now that we've just got this, all the other layers have gone. So file and export as, and let's call it stones. And I want to save it to the desktop. I'm just going to click export, and then it's going to ask us how good a quality we want to export it to. Now if you're putting it on a website, you might like it slightly lower quality because it'll download quickly. But if you're showing it to somebody or you're printing, you might want it to be higher quality. So I'm just going to leave it at the default setting, which is 82. If we click export, we can see at the bottom it's exporting, and then we're done. Okay, so if we lower Gimp, you can see we now have our two pictures. So this is the one we've just created, and this is the original image, and we can see what a nice contrast that is. So this has been the introductory lesson to Gimp, and we've just used that to make one of these pictures. You'll see them, for example, London buses and New York cabs. They're always images like this, where they just bring out the colour of one particular bit of the photo, and the rest of it they make grayscale. So Gimp, it's free for Linux, Macs and PC, and it's available from gimp.org.